but there's always negative things as well.
That's life. There's pros and cons to almost everything.
So let's spend a few minutes talking about some of the pitfalls or some of the downsides or some of the cons that we've seen within some faith traditions. Some of the things that we've seen that are detrimental.
Can we start with talking about money? Can we talk about money? I'd like to talk about money. Let's talk about tithing, man.
If we must.
Let's talk about tithing.
Oh, boy.
And how we preach tithing, but we don't preach budget.
All right.
And the whole reason for tithing, in my estimation, in these days would be to establish a level of budgeting where I have to budget this 10%. Now I have to work with, and Uncle Sam is taking their 25, 30%. I don't know what tax bracket you might happen to fall in. And then, you got, so if they take 30%, you gave 10% of the gross. Now you got 60% to work with. So what am I going to do with my 60%? How am I going to invest my 60%? How am I going to live on? What portion of it am I going to live on? What portion of it am I going to invest? What portion of it am I going to save? How's my rainy day fund look like? Do I have 6 months of living expenses put away? Do I, like, all these things we don't talk about? And when I say talk about, I mean talk from the platform, just the same way as we say, shall a man rob God? Let's say a man needs to learn how to budget. Can we do that? That's just how I feel. I know the church operationally needs money. It needs money to function. It needs money to keep the lights on. It needs money to keep the parking lot paved, to keep the mortgage paid, to pay something for the preacher to live on. It needs money.
How much more money would you have if everyone wasn't broke?
Hello, somebody. Woo, we gonna get in trouble for this, Larry. We gonna get in trouble, bro. It's gonna be good trouble.
You had to start us off here. I thought we were
ready for the smoke.
Why couldn't we get a lighter pitch? Come on, man. You had to come out fast. All right.
I had to because it's burning, man. Like, come on now. Talk to us about some budgeting. Talk to us less about a supernatural increase and talk to us about a natural budget.
Oh my God.
And how to invest.
That is the
and
most
how to
annoying
grow
part.
The little money that we getting.
Oh my gosh. Every praise break is about how God is about to cancel all of my debt.
God, the same God that can cancel your debt could give you a position, a skill to make the money and pay back the person you owe. Because guess what? When he cancels the debt, somebody was holding that debt because that money was actually given to you at one point, right? So somebody's being left with the short end of the stick. And when you become the lender and not the borrower, when you become the head and not the tail, you're going to feel some type of way when people don't pay you back.
And then you have all of these testimonies. So-and-so had this much of debt canceled. She checked her account and then all of a sudden everything was gone. Not bringing up the fact that was just a glitch in the system.
Bro, no words.
Like, no come on. Come on. It's so wild because it comes from this what do you call it? You have an abundance mindset and then you have a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
And it's always coming from this scarcity mindset. Like, there's no way that everyone can be financially in a good place and the church be taken care of at the same time. And instead of doing the hard work of actually showing people how to budget and how to set up themselves properly, I'm just going to try to get as much out of people as humanly possible.
I mean, it is
because
hard work though. It's hard work. It's hard work. It's hard work telling people how
it
to
takes a
budget.
lot of long-term thinking and not
It's
simple.
hard. Like, and we talked about this before. Some folks don't want to do the hard stuff because why? It's hard, bro. It's hard. It is difficult. It's arduous to tell somebody who has been living check to check, who has been conditioned to always want something else, to say no. Like, it's hard. Like right now, one of my sons, I'm trying to put it in him right now because he likes to spend. Right? They get a little bit of allowance. He likes to spend. And I'm like, bro, you gotta flip your mindset from being a consumer to being a producer. You have to. And we go through different things and we talk about, okay, you want this. Why do you want it? Can it wait? Do you know how much money you have? What will you have after you spend it? Can you work to make that money that you want to spend on this and not touch your savings and then get it later? Like, we go through all of those scenarios, right, to establish whether this decision is the right decision. And that's everything from him wanting to go to the concession stand at the games to him wanting to buy some toys. And I'm telling you, it's hard. And I could hear somebody saying, well, these are grown folks, grown adults. Why should a church feel responsible for having to do that when they already got to do all these things, like go visit sick folk in the hospital, go do all this? Well, guess what? If the person didn't budget, they didn't have a life insurance policy, they passed away, guess who's going to end up helping them with the funeral costs?
GoFundMe.
And the church. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to do fish fries. They're going to do offerings. They're going to do all different types of things to help take care of this family. When, if the family had a little bit of forethought and said, hey, can we get a burial policy? Can we get a $25,000 policy on Auntie May or Sister such and such? Then that wouldn't be left up to the church to handle.
And that's the thing too. The pastor doesn't have to be the expert in all of this. There are other people who can help and give guidance in these areas.
Yes. And the thing I think should be done, which is something that I thought of probably more than a decade ago, is that there should be a part of the church that is there to develop the person, the physical life that you're living here, be better. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about your eternal soul, your eternal life, but how do you help me get my finances better, get my marriage better, get my...
Bro, why can't that be Wednesday service? Why does Wednesday service have to be
evangelical?
Why can't we do that? Bro. Like, why can't Wednesday service be like, this Wednesday we're gonna talk about budgeting, or we're gonna talk about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and guess what? If your attendance goes down because you're talking about budgeting,
it's going down anyways. No one's coming over.
Listen, the people that are there are really the ones that are gonna support your vision. And the more you equip them, because some you're called to equip, others you're called to inspire. If you equip the folks that you're called to equip by giving them good financial principles, giving them good encouragement to activate their faith and say, hey, I'm going to take this chance. But it's not just a shot in the dark. I've taken some time to analyze the pros and the cons. And yeah, that will build your church. Imagine having people that don't necessarily have to be millionaires, but they're close to debt free, or they are debt free, and they're not living paycheck to paycheck. And you could call them and say, hey, The church has a $20,000 expense that we weren't expecting this month. We're calling on 10 people to give $2,000. And that's not a call that gets made every month now. Don't make that call every month. Don't do that every month. But if that call gets made, those people will respond because they have the funds set aside that are discretionary, that they could tap into if needed. That they don't need to go swipe their credit card to help you out, but they actually have the money to help you out.
Don't just you and a lot of those people, their expertise, not only do they have the extra funds that can help in those situations, they also have expertise to help you not always be in a crisis.
Yes.
Because going from crisis to crisis is mad. It's crazy. It's really tacky, especially if you're a new person in a church when so much of the service is dedicated to taking an offering. Like, fam.
Yeah.
That is not cool. When you're a brand new person in a church, like, you're like, dang, I'm getting hit up like this. I just showed up.
Especially if you're a person of means. If you're a person of means and people know that you're a person of means,
or if you are maybe a little bit more affluent, and then the pastor finds out, oh wow, so and so from this job or that job just became a member, you're constantly getting hit up all the time because they know what you make. Like, that's not cool either. That's a huge downfall, and I think it causes a lot of people to get very disillusioned with the idea of church because so many churches don't understand, basic financial literacy. So many pastors don't understand basic financial literacy. And that pastor has such a big influence over the members of that congregation that it just creates such a detrimental relationship where when people are coming there looking for your guidance, you're giving a lot of the guidance, whether it's by instruction or by example. Mm-hmm. It leads people in a bad direction that they end up having to deal with later on.
Yeah. And bro, if we tallied up all the people who felt like they were overused, we would have a huge congregation. People who and that's not just money. That's talent. That's ability. Yeah. So I'll get off my milk cart right now. But
I mean, we're not even going to talk about how so much of the teaching about giving in a lot of church circles is
guilt.
It's guilt based.
Guilt.
It's manipulating text by saying things that it doesn't mean. Whew. Because folks in there don't really know the Bible. They just know what you tell them.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's manipulation, and it's not cool, and it's such a bad witness, right? Like, instead of learning, like, as entrepreneurs, we don't have the luxury of being able to manipulate people into into supporting our business. Like, you can do that for a certain amount of time, right? And there are some online entrepreneurs who use some of the same tactics, right? Or some of the same things that you'll find in certain churches. But eventually those businesses get shut down or they end up going to jail.
Yeah.
For one reason or another. But as a regular entrepreneur, we don't have the luxury of being able to do that. We have to do the hard work of being organized, of planning, of having strategy, of learning how to run our business in a way that's going to be successful.
And learning your customer. Learn your customer. Learn your audience. Who
are you talking to? Well, no, I think a lot of pastors know who their customer is, but
they so I've had the experience where we initiated conversation with a church consulting company, and they were asking questions that they knew, like the church knew, they didn't know the answer. And it wasn't crazy questions. It was like, okay, what's the average age of your congregants?
Gosh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What do most of the people in your congregation do outside of church for fun?
That's an easy one. Nothing.
Go out to eat? I answered that one. I said, go out to eat? Yeah, boy. I answered that one. hey, we church for we gonna have us a dinner now. We gonna have us a dinner. Before service, after prayer, breakfast, something. We gonna eat. Cause that's the only thing that will send those endorphins going, and that's all right. That ain't gonna rock the boat too
Ain't gonna
much.
send me to hell.
You know it. Like, but simple questions like that, that tells me we
or
don't
even
know.
a clear pathway that takes them from being just a guest in the service to actually becoming a member. Like, what is that process look
The
like?
path to assimilation, lack of a better term.
Exactly. And then just basic things. Like, I work with a lot of churches, and we talk about like having automatic giving, so that way giving isn't something that has to be such a huge portion of the service, that you can focus on serving your guests instead of hitting them up, because you know that your bills are paid from the people who have already decided to be a member. Like, all of these things are things you can do.
And I think people
as
understand. Yeah, people understand church needs money, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be something that we hide from. Like, the church needs money. Just like the McDonald's that you go to, they need money because they got employees to pay. They got bills that they got to pay. So, like, let's not super spiritualize it. Church needs money. Church needs money. And we need to know that. And if you have,
and the money's not all going to outside ministries. We know it's going to the salaries.
Yeah, of course, because these people have families. They gotta, like, come on now. Come on now. And don't be that crazy person that says, oh, every pastor needs to have a job. Bruh. Pastoring your raggedy tail is a job. Okay? It is. Don't give me that. Don't give me that.
It's a hard job. It's very
hard. All the stuff you've been through, and you want me to be there when such and such is in the hospital. You want me to come for prayer. You want me to come to your kids' graduation. You want me everywhere. Right? And that's not just one person. Let's take a small church. Let's say a church only has 120 people, right? The average church in America is what, 70? Let's say a church has 70 people, and that comprises of maybe 20 families. Bruh, that's 20 different families you have to be available for in some capacity. Like, come on, that's a job.
Not to mention how long it takes to put together a good sermon.
Bro, a well-developed sermon that you didn't download from Sermon Spice. I'm going to tell it all. I'm going to tell it all. I'm going to be Cat Williams up in this place.
Bruh. Do you know how many times
Sermon Spice, you putting little things in there, here and there, and trying to, put something together, because you got to come up with at least 3 to 2 messages a week.
Or you figure out what gets the response, so you just repeat. You find different ways to get the same response every single week. To get the
same message from a bunch of different texts. You saying the same thing.
Like, we know you ain't going to, you didn't dig into the Greek, you didn't dig into the Hebrew, you didn't go into the lexicon, you didn't do nothing. Like, we know that. We know that. It's a recycled version of the same thing you've been doing. And I noticed it, and I'm very impressed. I'm like, man, can you imagine you say the same thing every single week and you're still employed? Oh my gosh. That is impressive.
Hey,
that is very impressive.
But But this is the thing though. I bet you about 80% of people don't even notice it.
Or if they do, they just don't say anything. They're just like,
I'm telling you, 80% of people don't notice it because they forgot what you preached about last week. They forgot. They just knew they got happy for a little bit. They just knew they shouted for a little bit. But if you ask them what's point 1 and point 2 of that sermon, they can't tell you. He was good. He was good. He was good.
It was good.
But what did you learn? What did you walk away with to apply to your life?
You got to praise your way out.
And that's even good. That's even good preaching too. That's even preachers that dug deep and spent time in prayer and studied and delivered a really great message that you could apply to your life. 80% of people come back, they don't even remember, bro. Come on now. So you do get the ability to bring it back again in a new package, and they'll take it as brand new. Oh, okay, all right,
exactly.
But to do it over, like, to go back to my point, being a minister is a job. Don't tell them they got to get 2 jobs. They got to be that and be a job, and then be mad that they're not really doing what you will need them to do, and they're not there for you, and they're not doing this, and they're not doing that. Don't do that, because that
if it's a job, just like every other, if it is a job though, just like any other job, if I'm a contributor to that, if I'm helping support that salary, I need to have, there are certain expectations. Like, what should I expect from you as my pastor? And you have to, it goes both ways. Like, yeah, it's a job. Yeah. Bet. What do I, and I would, if as a pastor, I've been a pastor before, there should be expectations. Like, you should expect for me to study. You should expect for me to pray. You should expect for me to do certain things. So I think it's having both ways, understanding, like, if it's a job, you can't just, and I know preachers who do that, barely do nothing all week, and then they just show up and then give a whatever sermon, and then we do it the same the week after that. Like, there's a lot of issues to that. So I think the idea of finances is definitely problematic, especially when you're trying to build a business. If you're constantly being pulled from a congregation or a pastor asking you to give more, that could be draining, and that could be problematic.